This is Dr. Wayne Hayde, aka the Watchman, on the 12th of May 2025. They say Carnival is Bakanal, and Trinidad and Tobago is the land of Carnival. So does it mean that Trinidad and Tobago is the land of Bakanal? Well, it would appear so, because we keep stepping from putting our foot in one pile of dog doo-doo into another. And what do I mean by that? The court recently ruled, when I say recently, I mean like yesterday, that whilst the arrest of the Commissioner of Police, Hayde Christopher, was indeed lawful, the case against her has been discontinued or dropped by the DPP. And as a result, she should be reinstated, which means have her suspension revoked by the Police Service Commission. Now, I can tell you, as someone who, when I was a police officer, was on suspension, when they decide to lift your suspension because the case has been dropped or dismissed or any other thing that happened with it, it doesn't happen overnight that your suspension is lifted. Sometimes you have to wait a month, a couple of months before you hear anything. But we have this scenario, which I told you all was going to happen, that nothing was going to take place until coming down to the end of Mrs. Hayde Christopher's time in office. Nothing was going to happen in April and so on to interfere with all the election things that were going on. So the DPP has issued a verdict dropping the case and saying, well, the arrest was lawful, but based on all the evidence, it means that there is hardly any prospect of a conviction being obtained if the matter is taken to court. So all these things are happening at the same time. And now we have today, the Commissioner of Police, with her legal team in tow, has gone into headquarters, up to the steps, up to the 6th floor. And what is being told, I don't know if it's true, that she has been reinstated as Commissioner of Police. Now, the acting commissioner, appointed by Parliament, is sitting there and he doesn't know what is happening. So now we have two commissioners. But I have some questions here. Is it that the Police Service Commission moved with all and utter and complete haste to reinstate Ms. Hayde Christopher 3 days before the end of her contract, and did not inform the present Commissioner of Police of what is happening, so he can get basically ambushed in the building? And when I say ambush, I not mean it in a illegal way, but being ultimately surprised and not knowing what is happening when the commissioner comes back into office. Is that what was the intention? But does this also mean that the Police Service Commission intends to extend Ms. Christopher for another year from the 15th of May? Because that's the only thing that could make sense if that is their intention. And it would make no sense for them to reinstate her 3 days before the end of her contract, when they have no intention of extending her. So what is going on? What is happening? But all of this is part of the bacchanal that is taking place in the police service that seems not to end. Because we also have information coming from the Deputy Commissioner for Investigations that has caused more confusion and more heat than light when she says to the press that the investigation is continuing even after the DPP has dropped the charge against Ms. Haywood Christopher. What investigation? The impression given by the media, the investigation into Ms. Christopher, that it can't be, into Mr. Bess, for what? Not with respect to the importation of the firearms, because if they couldn't charge Miss Christopher who approved the importation, how could they charge Mr. Bess, who did not receive the firearms at all? There's no charge there. So it has to be some other investigation. And what I'm hearing is the investigation into excess ammunition that possibly were in the possession of Mr. Bess. But if that is true, that case is doomed to failure. Because SRPs and regular police are allowed, when they're in certain positions, to keep ammunition. And what do you call excess? We don't go by excess in the police service, as long as it's accounted for. And in Mr. Best's case, he was a reserve army officer still. So he's exempted under the Firearms Act for the need to have certain kind of licenses when on duty. What is going on? This is too much of confusion and bacchanal and people talking out of turn. So now the new Minister of Homeland Security has to deal with this issue here before you could even sit down and look through what has to be done to help the police service. You have to clean another bacchanal. And if Ms. Christopher is extended for another year, does it mean that they're going to scrap the list that they already prepared? Some people say that, yeah, they plan to scrap the list because through the grapevine they hear that they want a lineup to bring back Gary as commissioner. Trinidad is bacchanal. I don't know what to say. Let me wait for our next 5 shoes to drop.